my spouse stays at home with my kids and doesn't earn an income. Do I need to buy life insurance? So can you talk about the scenario? It was something that I think is not as well known, of insuring the unemployed spouse. So can you talk a little bit about that and the importance of that? What would you recommend to clients? The second part of that question we also had was, should you get one policy or two, or joint policies to cover both spouses?
Okay, let's answer the first part first, and if I forget the second part, you'll remind me, right? Okay, I think it's fairly common in life insurance training rooms to talk about covering a non-working spouse. And generally the discussion goes something like this: well, what would happen, do you know what she does or he does, and what is all that worth, and what would it cost to hire someone to do those things if that person were to step out of the picture? You're busy at work. Many of us, well, a lot of the young people haven't seen the movie Kramer versus Kramer, but those of us that are my age and older have seen it. That was just a movie about divorce, about how a wife basically mother left the picture, and the father was doing well in his career, and all of a sudden the wife is gone and the mother's gone, and he had to deal with his kid and his career, and all of a sudden his career started floundering, and he lost his job, and it was kind of a tragic movie to see it. But imagine losing a spouse 100%, not just a divorce, but a death. What would it cost to replace those things? So people think, well, how much life insurance do I need to be able to afford a nanny? And then I had a client call me, and that's all I learned when I was trained at the beginning 30 years ago. The nanny factor. How much do you need? Maybe $250, $300. That'll pay the price of a nanny. In those days, you could make 8 to 10% interest on a CD. So you thought, well, if I had $300,000 in the bank, I'm getting 10%. That's $30,000. That's what a nanny costs. Well, 10% in the bank. The word interest might be actually removed from the dictionary, because I'm not sure that anybody's getting it anymore. My kids don't even know what it is. And then nannies are not $30,000 anymore. So they're more expensive than that. But beyond that, I had a guy call me up for a quote. He was in his car, and he was a commodity trader making a lot of money, 7-figure guy. So this is a great call. I loved getting it. And he says, I need $8 million on myself, and I want $2 million on my wife. And I'm saying, okay, fine, I'll take that order all day long. I love that. And when I submitted it to the carrier pushed back a little bit. Not on him, because they recognized the $8 million made sense. But on the spouse, they're like, we don't understand why he needs $2 million on his wife. She doesn't work. She has no assets of her own. Tell me what he's thinking, or we can't issue this. And so I went back to him, because I wasn't really ready for that question from the carrier, and I said, Lance, what's your rationale for having $2 million in your spouse? He goes, I don't know. He said, Byron, it seems obvious to me. I have 3 kids. They're all under 5. My wife stays home with the kids. We also have a nanny to help her stay home with. She's there 24/7. She lives with us. If something happened to my wife, though, I can tell you right now, I'm not going back to work Monday morning. I may not go back to work for 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years. My kids are not going to understand. They're going to be saying, where's mommy? And I want to be there. And I'm certainly not going to just let some nanny raise my kids. I'm out the door at 6 a.m. I don't get home till after they get home from school. I'd have to be there to make sure they get off to school. I'd want to be there when they get home from school. I'd have to do a lot of the things that my wife does, because I'm not letting a nanny do that. And so I want the flexibility to be able to take some time off, and then I am going to have a loss of income as a result of my wife's death. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, oh my God, he's right. I mean, he really got it. And the next day I called the carrier, I explained it. They issued the $2 million on his wife, and the very next day I applied for $2 million on my wife, because I was working from 5 a.m. to 12 midnight when I was building this business. I was thinking, there's no way I'd be able to do this if my wife wasn't around. My whole career would take a different trajectory. So there is an economic loss, even though there is no income directly to replace with the loss of a non-working spouse.
No, it's a good
and
point.
Then there's the nanny factor. So people need a whole lot more. And again, it's still not going to be all just fine when a non-working spouse passes away. It's still going to be difficult, even if you have all the money you need. But man, to add the money problems when you can buy, $500,000 or $1 million on a 35-year-old woman, let's say, for, a couple $100 a year. I mean, that's what we spend to go out to dinner sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So
no,
it
it's
just
a good
seems silly
point,
not
because
to
it's
have
not just the nanny. Like the
That's
aha
right.
there is that the other spouse's career is probably going to be impacted, or they're going to pick up some.
There is definitely a loss of income almost every time, based upon the death of a non-working spouse. For the surviving spouse their career is different. They cannot spend as much time focused on it, because they got to focus on things at home, assuming they care about their kids, which most people do.
Right.